Welcome to Terra Talking, the podcast that's named after the blog that's just me, telling stories to offer help, healing, and hope as you journey into your passionate, purposeful, and prosperous life. Thanks for coming along on the ride, and now on to today's topic. What I wanted to actually talk about today is this idea that your life, how you experience life, is going to be reflective of how you experience yourself. And it can be kind of a triggering thing to just read it. If you're just reading this comment, this concept, this idea about, that your experience of you equals your experience of life. What does that mean? What does that bring up for you? How does that look? And why does it trigger you if it does? And I'm not trying to trigger you at all, but I just know that for myself, when I first started digging into this concept a little more, it felt a little bit like, no, life is supposed to just be this good, amazing thing that has nothing to do with me. And oh, how wrong I was, because it has everything to do with me. Just like it has everything to do with you. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today, is just how, first of all, how this concept is true. Secondly, how can you make it work for you? Because the bottom line is, if you are in a place where you are stressed, you feel stuck in a struggle, you feel overwhelmed, you feel unsure of anything, you feel like you're constantly looking for a roadmap somewhere, that you just want there to be this like step-by-step guide of how do you make the carousel of crazy stop. I know that feeling so well. My life has been a carousel of crazy multiple times over the last, how old am I? 44 years. Many times. And what I eventually came, when this carousel kind of hit this like warp speed and so much was happening to me, that's exactly the mode that I took. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening? What did I do? I'm better than this. I'm worth more than this. And I just felt like poor little match girl, because my life was so crazy, right? Like I was going through a divorce. Well, I feel like I've told this story a lot, but you know what? I have a lot of makeup to do, so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. It started with, now, first of all, most marriages don't just like end overnight. Some do. And for those women who are absolutely blindsided, my heart goes out to you. But most marriages, most relationships tend to kind of have this real slow downward spiral. And maybe it starts with, you're suspecting something. Maybe it's just that all of a sudden your communication is weird. Something happens and you kind of know something's up, and it just kind of keeps going downhill from there. And if that resonates with you, if you've had a relationship go downhill like that, give me some praise hands, because that to me is almost this like slow, painful death that you're going through. But anyway, so my marriage had been doing that for a good solid while. But we had kind of just agreed to disagree. We were going to stay together for the kids. Because that always is such a great idea. And so I knew that things were going on, but I didn't want to ask hard questions because I didn't want to deal with the hard answers. I was too insecure to deal with what I was pretty sure was going to be coming back if I were to actually confront or ask questions. So I'm just kind of living this life. My youngest daughter was born, it's actually her birthday next week. So 12 years ago, with a ton of medical issues. No doctors knew what to do for her. No one could tell me why we kept being in and out of the hospital. Just adding more and more and more equipment. So I'm just kind of trying to pick myself up by the bootstraps and figure life out, because it was constantly crazy. We were constantly in the hospital. I have my 3 older girls who were all just trying to live their, little elementary school lives. And I mean, like I was just barely keeping it together, barely keeping it together. So this is my experience of, you guys, I am like a professional makeup artist in case you didn't know. So this is just my experience. Like every day is like something crazy is going to happen, but I'm going to just get it together, get us all through this day, and just crash in bed to do it all over again the next day. So that's where I was at. And then out of the blue, during one of these idyllic little days of chaos, we had gone to go get lunch with my husband at the time, the girls' dad. And we came back, and I had left Kendall, the youngest, with her nurse. We have full-time RNs who come in and help us with her stuff just because of her complexities. I come back, and that nurse is, no lie, I thought she was dead on my couch. She is passed out. I really thought she was dead. And I knew she had lupus. So like she acted weird sometimes, but I mean, I don't have lupus. I believed that, whatever medication she was on were the reasons she was acting weird. And so we left it alone. And anyways, I come in, she's completely passed out on the couch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman died in my home. I can't call 911 or else they'll think I did it, right? Like this is like when you're on Wheel of Fortune and you're watching it and the person on there is like guessing stupid letters and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. It's because when you are in a stressful situation, your brain stops working. It is all about survival. So that's what, in my mind, I couldn't call 911. I was responsible for taking her to the hospital. Like, that's what I thought. Realizing that taking a corpse into the ER is probably not any worse than calling 911, but I mean, here we are. So I kind of hedge her back up onto my shoulder, get her out to the car. She is just dead weight at this point. But when I do that, she takes a big breath in and I'm like, okay, good. She's not dead. But still, she's clearly out of it. So my husband at the time, the girl's dad, comes in and sits with them. And I take the bag of bones. She wasn't a bag of bones. It was very hard to carry her. Nurse to the ER. Don't know her last name. I don't know her birth date. I don't know. I mean, I think I knew her last name, but it wasn't like, we just always just knew her by her first name, and so they're asking me all these questions at the hospital. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with her. She was weird this morning, but she said she had just taken some pain meds for her lupus. So they're like, well, try to find a family member. Like, we don't have any medical history on this woman. We don't know what's really going on. So I go digging in her purse. Why am I telling this story so long? Anyways, I go digging in her purse, and there is a bag full of my daughter's IV medications that she had used. So she had started an IV on herself with my daughter's supplies, pushed a week's worth of IV pain meds, Benadryl, Xanax, all of this stuff into her own IV. She was completely high. So I find this, I pull it out and I show it to the nurse and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my daughter's IV medications. They're like, what is it? So we went through each syringe and they're like, watch this. So they push some Narcan and 10 minutes later, here she is. She's up, she's excited. She's, just answering questions. And it's everything I can do to not like lunge at the woman and finish the job myself, because I'm like, you could have killed my child. You were passed out on the couch while she was laying in bed with no one to watch her. I had taken my 3 girls to go somewhere. That's why I came home. So I was just irate. So anyways, we get home and here come the police. We have to file a, police report because stealing someone else's opioids is still a crime in this country, or it was a few years ago. So go through all of that. The police report, now we're going to be questioned by detectives, blah, blah, blah. We've got to go get a lock for the fridge where all the medications, like, it's just crazy, right? So the next day, the husband leaves for work, and I go to open up the mail. And in the mail, I find evidence of exactly everything that I had been suspecting was going on. And I just knew in that moment that I was either going to completely lose my mind. I was pretty sure that was going to happen. And that life as I knew it had changed. And sure enough, it did. I mean, I don't really know why I just went into that whole long story, but just to tell you that it was like, it was this boom, boom, boom. And I think by the end of that week, my child was in the hospital because of all of what had happened with the nurse. And it was just, and when my daughter goes to the hospital, it's not like, hey, let's go hang out in the ER for a couple hours and get a bag of fluids. It's like, by the time we get there, they're like pulling out the crash cart. They're sending her right to the ICU. She's intubated, she's on life support drips. It's not like a fun thing. And her hospital is 3 hours away. So it's like, hey, let's just disrupt our whole life. Thank God she is in a very stable place, and that has not happened in a few years. But this is what my life was at the time. So the nurse tries to kill herself. She almost kills my kid. We're in the middle of a grand jury investigation. I get evidence in the mail of the absolute betrayal and just chaos of what my marriage had just derailed into. My kid's in the hospital. And, because my marriage has been in this upheaval, I haven't been, like touched or loved or encouraged or any of this in years and years. And I am convinced that I'm going to end up in the hospital next to our nurse because I was just going to lose my mind. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't deal with what life had become. And I sat there just feeling like, why me? It was just this very like, poor mopey Terra, my life is so horrible. And it was just, now I can sit there and look at who I was and how I had been becoming, and say that. But I would never say that to someone else who's in that situation, because when you are there, I know that pain. I know how it feels to be like, oh my gosh, what else can go wrong? And then you're like, oh, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to say that out loud, because that as soon as you say that, thousands of other things can and probably will start to go wrong. So I was just in this place where I didn't know how to handle it anymore, but I was just waiting for someone else to come along and fix it for me. And I was just like, someone else has to fix this. This is someone else's fault. I know. If I find a man who is so much better than my husband, obviously we were headed right towards divorce. But if I find someone who's better than him, then all my problems will be solved. Someone else can come and fix this. If I find a better nurse, then all my problems will be solved. My daughter will be magically better. And it just became, you guys, I just totally hit this contour way hard. It's all right. We're going full Beyonce today. That's just the end of it. So I was just stuck in this place where my life experience was absolutely reflective of where I was at, how I was experiencing my own self, because I was putting so much energy and effort into outside things. And then it started to turn into, well, if I take good care of other people, if I love someone else, then they will love me. And this will be how it's fixed. If I could just be loved, I'll be fixed. And, so that was part of where it just became like, I do everything for my kids. I do everything for all of my friends, for anyone else who needs it. And I kept looking in outward places to get help, to get hope, to get love, to get, any kind of care or concern or attention. And I was believing these lies that my ego was telling me. And this is the thing, is that all of us at some point believe those lies from our ego. We believe that we're only as good as how we're helping someone else. We believe that if we stand up for ourselves and we make someone else unhappy with us, that then we're bad somehow. And what I had to dig into was really getting around this idea that no one else got to set that tone for me. No one else could make it better, and no one else was going to make it better. And it was no one else's job to make it better. And that was where I started to shift things. When I started to realize that like I wasn't the one who did, the pushed the meds. My nurse had done that to herself. I wasn't the one who decided to go outside of the marriage, but I was the one who could realize how I was going to respond to it. I was the one who could take responsibility for saying, okay, I didn't mean to go down this road, but here's where I'm at. And this road sucks. And there's no Uber. I can't just, call up an Uber and get off of this crazy road. I've got to figure out how to get myself out of it. So that's what I did. And through that was where I started learning this idea that the more I spent time focused on and learning for myself, and through that, loving myself, the better my life started to get. And I know that this can start to feel egotistical, which the problem is it's the opposite of ego. Ego is how you act and how you are to the outside, and it's the outside world voice. But your soul is actually dying for you to come in and listen to it. You are not the voices from the outside. You are not how you interact or relate to other people. You are not everything you do for other people. You are your soul. You are the voice that tells you all the amazing things about yourself. But we don't listen to that voice. We're so busy hearing the outside voice and letting that outside voice, that outside ego, be our roadmap. And then we're getting ticked that the roadmap isn't taking us where we want to go. And it's because the roadmap is always outside of us. So when I started to dig into this idea and realize that I was done with trying to do everything the way that I was being told to do it, right? And that I had to really turn inward and focus on me first. It felt very weird. Growing up extremely religious, which I don't discount at all. It's just simply the reality of where I was. There was this sense, and this is how I took it in, right? Like, I'm not saying that this is what my parents said. This is not what the church said. This was my experience of what I was hearing from religion. And that was on me. I take full responsibility for whatever it is that you think or believe. But there was this sense that you could only be a good person if you were constantly putting others above yourself. There was this little thing we would say, Jesus first, others second, yourself last. Which is not a bad or a wrong concept inherently. But where it messed me up was this constant voice in my head that would say, don't ever do anything for your own pleasure. Don't ever, want to do something for yourself. Don't ever speak up for yourself. It started to turn into this thing of just completely putting myself down, letting myself literally be last. And I just became this, like, have you ever seen like a flag that's detached from the flagpole and it's just whipping in the wind? That's how I was. And then I was getting mad that all my life was being whipped in the wind, like the crazy carousel. It was just, I was reacting to a situation that I had set myself up into. And that was what I had to go in and unlearn. And I know so many people who still struggle with that. That sense that I can't speak up for myself. I can't say what I really want. Or I'll do it when the kids are older. My kids are my life. My husband is my life. My animals are my life. I have to do everything for them. No, you don't. Okay? I'll get a little tough lovey with you because I already look crazy. You don't. You do not owe a single other person anything in your life. Sure, your kids need food. You are responsible for them. I'm not suggesting you just let your kids fend for yourself at all. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you don't owe your kids to completely give your life up and your dreams up to keep them happy. Every single human is here to be responsible for their own happiness. It's a choice. You have to decide. I can't fix you. A therapist can't fix you. You have to decide that you are ready to dig in and analyze why are you whipping around in the wind? What has detached from your, reality, your experience, and what is whipping you around? And are you ready for it to stop? Are you ready to get off of the Ferris wheel of, whatever feels like it's just whipping you around, excuse me, and live your life for you again? That's really what it means when I say your experience of you is your experience of life. So if life isn't exactly what you're wanting right now, and don't hear me saying that that it has to be either all like you're living in the lap of luxury or you're, just down here in like absolutely depressed squalor. There's a lot of happy mediums. A lot of people are in that happy medium, convincing themselves that they're pretty happy. And I'm not here to tell you that you are or aren't. But for me, if you had looked from the outside into my life, you would have probably assumed that it was, pretty good. Sure, it's Terra, life is crazy, there was always something going on. But, inside I was falling apart. But because I was so used to having to do and be for everyone else, I felt like I couldn't speak up. I felt like I couldn't say that out loud to anyone that, hey, I really need some help here. I'm really struggling. I don't like how this life is, and I know it can be better. But even then, I didn't know that I felt like I was worth life being better. And that again goes back to, that was my experience of myself, that I was only worth the chaos. I was only worth being discarded. I was only worth being whipped around in the wind like that flag. That was what and how I was experiencing myself, and life showed right up to prove to me that I was exactly right. There's a quote that goes, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That's where I was. If I had at the time been like, you know what, I deserve so much more than this, I'm going to go get it, I'm going to give it to myself, life would have supported me. Because guess what? As soon as I started doing that, life did support me. That's how I know that statement is true. So the bottom line is we get stuck in these places where it doesn't feel great, but we also have this sense that don't complain about it, right? Like, you don't deserve anything better. You're fine. Don't be whiny. You don't need more money. You don't need that thing that you're wanting. You don't need a new car. We tell ourselves these stories and we convince ourselves that we're okay and that maybe the problem is us. Maybe we just need to do thus and such, to get our attitudes back. Sure, maybe we need to talk to a therapist. Some people can get to that place where they're willing and ready to say, maybe I just need to talk to someone about this. And you do. You probably do. If you're feeling that from inside, you probably do. Here's the thing, though, with people who are at the place where they're like, I feel bad even remotely complaining about this. You already have a self-worth problem because you are absolutely worth talking through things. It doesn't have to be even with a therapist unless there is some serious trauma that you need to address, right? Like, you can talk to anyone. sometimes we feel like we don't want to burden our friends. We don't want to make it weird. We don't want to, have them think anything of us. And by default, we become the friend who always listens, right? And we're taking on everyone else's problems. And we're just kind of building up more and more and more resentment with that, because it's going right back to that idea that I'm only as good as I am when I listen to someone else, when I help someone else. Is that, can I get an amen on that? Like, have you felt that? Have you been there? Have you been in that place where yep, I am the friend who listens to everyone else. I am the friend who does something for everyone else. And meanwhile, I'm dying. I am just, I wish someone would come in and listen to me. And it can be a really tough place to be. That is where some of the biggest breakthroughs can start to happen. When you're ready to admit that, when you're ready to say like, yeah, I'm tired of being the one who always listens and never having anyone listen to me. When you can start to be at that place where you're ready for something to change. And again, so many women convince themselves that they're actually fine, when really I know that they are dying inside. I see it. I see it in the things that you post on Facebook and the way that you post on Instagram. And I can just tell, I can sense this pain because I recognize that pain from when I was dealing with it. And I want nothing more than to be able to come alongside those people who are ready to take action, right? Because I'm not going to come in and just be like, hey, I can tell that you're struggling. Do you want to talk? Because sometimes people aren't there yet, right? But when you are ready to take that action, it really truly comes down to being able to face some of these beliefs that are holding you back. Some of these beliefs that, like I said, my religious upbringing with the joy, Jesus, others, you. It's about being able to look at that and say like, okay, but when I'm doing Jesus, others, me, and I am, dying on the vine, is that really what Jesus would do? Would he really tell me just keep going, keep doing things for others and someday it'll all just magically feel better? Would you tell a friend that? That's the biggest thing. Would you give a friend the advice that you're taking to heart for yourself? I challenge you to really, really honestly answer it, because I can tell you the answer is probably no. No, you wouldn't. No, you would never tell a friend, just keep giving from an empty, well. Just keep putting everyone's oxygen mask on, even though you're dying. You would never do that. Because you know that it's not the right thing. But we get so stuck feeling like we have to keep doing that for other people. But we don't. We owe it to the generations coming behind us. We owe it to the women around us to start healing ourselves. Because when one woman heals, other women around her heal. When one woman heals and another two people on the either side of her heal, then they can start to heal things. And by healing, what I mean is we aren't in this competition game. We aren't in this, oh, well, look at how her house is and I'm not that good of a housekeeper game. We start to find our own strengths and we support each other and we create the communities of strong, amazing women that have historically been how societies advance. And I'm not going to start getting into, I just spent 20 minutes talking about my nurse. I'm not going to get into like all of the, whether or not that feels feminist or whether it's this or that. The bottom line is that women are stronger together. Women are stronger when they're not competing with each other. But women are also stronger when they're healed. And when women are healed, they love themselves first. And that is magnetic. It is not just magnetic to the people who already love you. It is magnetic to anyone who you are needing to bring into your life. It is magnetic to the kinds of healing in relationships that you may be thinking, I don't know how to have this conversation with my husband. You know, we're not doing bad, but we hardly ever talk, and I'm tired of being in this rut. Maybe you are like me, where your marriage just imploded and you found the evidence of it, you know, one day when you thought everything else was going to break down. Wherever you're at with those relationships, there is room for improvement, but it comes after you learn to love yourself. Because when you know who you are, you know how to love yourself, not only do other people you start to be able to tell them, like, no, that doesn't feel good. You know, no, that's not really what I need right now. You have boundaries. You have the ability to stand up and say things. And people respect that. When you can set a boundary with people, my gosh, and we think they don't, right? We're so afraid of setting boundaries. Why? Because it actually makes life so much easier when you know. Okay, if there were no road signs, right? If it was always just like, you can turn here, you can wait 5 feet and turn there. You might get lost. You know, this might be the road you're looking for. The speed limit might be 70, it might be 10. We don't know. When you are just kind of in this place where you're just like, whatever, life is really tough. It would be really tough to drive across the country if there were no road signs. People need a road sign of how to treat you, how to act with you, what you need, what you require, what you're feeling. And you can only give those road signs when you know them for yourself. You only start to know them for yourself when you do the hard work of digging in. Yes, this can look like working with a therapist. Yes, it can maybe come from reading a good book. It can come from multiple times and ways and places. But the bottom line is, let it come from somewhere. Don't just keep waiting for life to be this magical event that just finally starts clicking for you, because it won't until you start clicking for yourself. Ask me how I know. I need to wear a sticker. Ask me how I know this, because I waited for so long for life to click for me. And it wasn't until I got real intentional and real serious about digging into who I was, what I was, who I was becoming, what I needed. You know, it's just everything that I wanted in life started happening once I started showing up for myself. That is the biggest key to this. You have to be ready to show up for yourself. And you may not even know what that means or looks like right now, but something in that is resonating with you. If you're here watching this live, then you're on the right track. But that's just, it's what I do with my courses. There's You Are, where you start to really dig into who are you being? Who are you becoming? There is my new one, Love Me. I mean, it's so easy for you guys to start digging into these concepts. It is, I took stuff from my counseling classes. I took stuff from just books that I have read. I'm a voracious reader. I took stuff from my own experience. I took stuff from, experts. I took stuff from just your average person on the street. And I made it so that you can start to figure out and unravel, how did you get to this place where this doesn't just come naturally? Because we all got there. We all got there at some point. Now, I'm not saying every single woman. There are some women who just, Beyonce comes to mind, right? Like, she just seems to have it all together. But for those of you who don't, for those of you who are ready to take the action, like, I want you to start somewhere. And I come in here, I do this stuff because I am so passionate about it. I want you to start healing. I want you to find your place where you know that you're showing up fully in your strength and your power, and you are healing and healed and whole and complete and loved and loving. All of those things that you want to be, you deserve to be them. You are them, But there's this layer of, junk that you've let the world, that you've let ego, that you've let other people come in and kind of dirty up the mirror of your shine. You don't have to. It's really so simple to drop those voices and listen to your voice, listen to your heart, listen to your soul. It's dying to be heard. That's what I'm here to help walk you through. That's why I show up. That's why I write the captions that take me an hour on Instagram. That's why I, create more of the podcast. I send you the emails every week because I don't want women to stay stuck in this life is kind of okay. Because I'll tell you what changed for me. Not only did I survive my divorce, right? And that was tough. I'm not saying that the second I decided to start loving myself, that I was just like, oh, divorce, this silly thing. Let me just sign right here. We'll be fine. It was brutal. And it was a part of my journey. It was a part of the continuing on of what I needed to do. But I got through that. And I started to realize I didn't have to stay in that hurt place. I didn't have to stay stuck there. I didn't have to stay in a place where I felt like I would never trust another human being. I was able to forgive. I was able, and letting go of that bitterness, of unforgiveness, felt like I lost 200 pounds. I mean, I can't even tell you how light I felt and how much I operate better now, having found forgiveness, not just for him. He never asked for it, but I found it within myself, and I found that I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive my own part in that journey. And through that, once I could forgive myself, it opened the doors to start really loving myself. And I started to see myself for the gift that I was, the gift that I am. And I want nothing more than that for you guys, wherever you're at. You are a gift. You are beautiful. You came here with a purpose and a mission and a voice and a story to tell and healing to bring. You are absolutely here on purpose. Do you believe that for yourself? Are you ready to dig in and find what that means for yourself? Are you ready to start saying, I don't need to settle for this mediocre anymore? Whatever your mediocre is. And again, don't hear me saying that if you live just a basic, great suburban existence and you're happy with that, I am so happy for you. This is more for the people who know that they're overwhelmed on some level of life, that there's some struggle that they're still fighting through, that there is more out there for them than what they have allowed themselves to settle for. And they don't wish to stay stuck there anymore. They're ready. They're ready for something to come along and help them figure out how to change it. And they're looking for a step-by-step roadmap. And the bottom line is that one doesn't exist. Because the roadmap gets thrown out with the first step when you decide that you're worth everything that you want. When you decide that you're worth putting yourself first. When you decide that you are worth knowing and loving and liking and trusting, and you start giving those things to yourself. Stop waiting around for someone to treat you the way that you are dying to be treated. You want flowers? Go get them. Do you want someone to write you a love letter? Write it to yourself. I promise you, this will start to change your life when you start to show up for yourself the way that you are waiting for someone or something else to show up for you. My entire money situation turned around once I started showing up for myself. I'm not dripping in money. I'm not at all saying, oh, money just starts pouring from heaven the second you love yourself. But I don't stress about it anymore. I used to sit there and hold so tightly to my pennies, and I was taking joy away from not just myself, but from my children, because I was so worried and stressed And I couldn't see that I had gifts, that I could go figure out ways of making more money if I needed it. I didn't have to stay stuck living someone else's story of, well, you can only make this much. You can only work this many hours. You can only do this. I decided to forge my own way and believe my own news stories. And that's where life started to get awesome. And it can, and it does. But you have to be willing to see things in a new way. You just do. I can't, what's that movie with Sandra Bullock where you couldn't go outside and look at the black spirit thing? And there's that meme where they're like holding the old man to the window and like peeling his eyes open. I can't do that for you. But I can tell you, go look out the window. I can tell you how to get to the window. I can tell you the way that I see it. And I can see in you the fact that you're ready to see it and that it's beautiful. But you have to go do that work. You have to be willing to see that there are different ways, and there is such a big world of opportunity out there for you to improve whatever it is that you're ready to improve, whatever it is that you wish was different or better, however it is that you're ready to heal. That healing is there for you. You have to believe it. You have to believe that you're worth it. You have to believe in yourself. And that's the message. That's the word. That is the word of the Lord for today. Can I get an amen? Is what I'm saying making sense to you? Is it hitting home with you? Is it hitting home in a way that you know either this is where you need to start doing more research, or you need to start looking? Is it hitting home in a way that you know there's someone else who needs to hear this? Is it helping you realize that you can and will change your life once you start changing how you interact with yourself? You do not need to change yourself. Who you are inherently in your soul is already beautiful and whole and healed. What you need to change is stop listening to the voices from the world, all of those negative voices, all of that bad story. We just drop that story. That's what I do in my courses. I go through that in the group coaching and Clarity, Courage, and Confidence. We go through that. We dig into what is the story that you're listening to? What is this belief? Where is it coming from? And then we go in and we take it out. And we fill that place with love. We fill it with encouragement. We fill it with anything else besides the negative, so that you can start to believe and hear your voice, your soul, and know inherently that you are just a beautiful child of God, and you are capable of doing and being and having anything you want. You are. You all are. And it doesn't mean that you hate the way that your life is. Maybe you do. And if you do, I'm here to tell you that it can change as soon as you start to change for yourself. Does anyone who is here, I think it says there's 2 or 3 of you here. Before I get off this live, does anyone have any questions, any comments, anything else that I said that isn't quite landing home, that doesn't make sense, that you wish I had gone into a little bit more? I'll finish tuning up the eye makeup here while I wait a minute, because I want you guys to get this so much. We're coming into a time where, you know, it's not just for our country, which I can't even remotely start to get into that. But I mean, we're coming to the end of a year, the end of a crazy year. Are you ready to start saying, next year's going to be different? I'm going to show up differently for myself, and therefore have a different life. You guys, my business should have, by all intents and purposes, like completely decimated in this year, but it didn't. It got really good. My life got really good in spite of the fact that it maybe shouldn't have. Because instead of sucking into the fear and sucking into the nervousness and the what ifs, I stood firm in knowing who I was. And when I did that, and as I have done for the last 4 or 5 years since all of this craziness started happening, it just continued to get better. I continued to get stronger. I continued to be more firm. I continued to tell people, this is how I need to be loved. This is how I need to be treated. This is how I need to be spoken to. And they did it. I want that for each and every single one of you. I'm going to put the links to my couple courses in the description box here. You can always send me a message. I am always open. I answer messages and emails as much as I humanly can. And I just want you to be at a place where you're ready to take the action that you deserve to take, to take charge of your own life. Stop letting it be run by the winds or by the people around you or by the voices that you just can't get away from that are so negative, but they're stuck in your head. Life gets to be as good as you're ready to make it. I so desperately want you to hear that. There's a little delay here. Let me see. What did this say? Almost as fascinating as your positive loving your makeup application process. Deanne, yes, I will do your makeup anytime. Hannah, I'm so fed up with the anxiety, ruminating, and worry about friendships. Oh, girl, I can feel that, like, for me, it would become a knot in the middle of my stomach. And it was just that sense of like, what did I do now? What did I say now? I see text messages come in and I would be scared to answer them. And it wasn't always just friends. It was just my entire life felt like it was one big, like, do I want to answer this? Oh, it gets so much better. You have such a world of opportunity in front of you to be able to start living life on your terms. And if those friends fall away, I promise you, what will come in, who will come in, will blow you away. Absolutely. Because you get to create life on your terms. You get to make it what you want it to be, how you want it to be. You get to become who you want to be. And that is absolutely what I'm here for. That is my mission. That is everything I want you guys to know. And I just show up and say it a little differently every time. But that's where we're going. That's what this group is for. That's what all of the other ways that I show up and things that I talk about, it all comes down to you loving yourself enough to show up for yourself better and watch life show up for you even more. Deanne, working with you has transformed you, setting your boundaries, focusing on needs. Exactly. This strange year was a gift to be able to look inward. And I know that next year can be just as transformative for people who are ready to take a hold of it. Last little bits of housekeeping. If you are interested in Love Me, I think the coupon codes are all gone, but you can still join me in the group if you want to. If you want to be able to give me some feedback on what's happening with that, if you want to just be a part of a smaller group that works with me, it we'll only have the group for maybe a week, but it's there if you jump into Love Me. And the special bonus call for planning 2021, that bonus goes away next Friday. So you have one more week to get in with Love Me and get in on the free call with me. And then you are, is still up, still going. Clarity, Courage, and Confidence, my group coaching program. This is my baby. In this group experience, you will change. You will find the tools. You will be asked to do some hard work. You will be held to the fire. You will You will have to answer some tough questions. That group is it's going to start looking a little different at the start of the new year, and the price is going up accordingly. So, but I'm keeping it at the lower price through December 1st, but only through December 1st. And if you want to get into that round, it is 6 weeks of working together, you and me, a small group, getting to know, getting the sisterhood, getting the support, getting, so much of my direct help and attention with whatever you're going through. I cannot express enough how much I hope that those of you who are ready to take some serious action can jump into that group with me. There are payment plans. There are ways that we can make this work for you, but you have to be ready to take that action. I can't do the work for you. So those are just some housekeeping things. Check your email. Look for the email from me. If you see it, it comes from Terra Talking. This week's letter, I tried to dive in deep to some of these concepts as well. Read it. Click on one of the links. I can't tell you guys how much that helps me when I know what is resonating with you. What are you reading? What do you like? What do you want more of? And there are 2 new podcasts up. My podcast is Terra Talking on all the podcast channels, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of those kind of things. And there's plenty more coming because I set a really intensely crazy goal for myself that I'm not even going to say out loud yet. I'll announce that next week. But yeah, if you like to just plug your headphones in and hear my voice telling you crazy stories about my life and mindset shifts that I've created through that, then go check out the podcast. I think that's it. Again, if you are ready to talk, if you're ready to take some action, send me a message. I'm going to drop the links in here in just a minute. Go check those out. Let me know what you need. Let me know where you're at. How can I show up to help you? Because I'm ready and willing to reach back down that mountain and say, hey, I've been in that really scary spot before. Reach for my hand and I'll help pull you up. You can do it. You are all beautiful. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful weekend. If you have friends who need to be in this group, please invite them in. We are so close to that 600 number. I just want a nice round number for like a few minutes, and then we can go skyrocketing past it. But I love and appreciate each and every one of you who show up here, who interact, who like the post, comment on the post, share your own posts. I would love if you just continue to let me know what's working and what do you need. Post your own questions in here. Post a meme that means something to you. Share with us. I want it to start becoming a place for you guys, not just me speaking into the void all the time. And if you need any of the products that I've used, let me know. I told you, I'm a horrible makeup blogger. I didn't talk about anything, but that's how we roll. And with that, I will say au revoir, and I love you all, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Terra Talking. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Find me pretty much everywhere on the interwebs as @Terra Talking, that's TerraTalking, or at my blog, terratalking.com. Your reviews, comments, and shares are always so appreciated. May you prosper well as you live your most passionate, purposeful life this week. And as always, keep on keeping on.